I pulled into our garage after a long shift at the hospital. 3 months of covering extra ER shifts had finally earned me the surgical residency I'd been working toward. I was exhausted, but there was this small spark of excitement. I had something special for her. A luxury watch she'd once said she loved, tucked inside my coat pocket. I'd been waiting for the right moment to give it to her, to show her that I appreciated everything she'd put up with while I worked my ass off to make this happen. But when I walked into the house, something felt off. There were no lights on, no music, no sound. Normally, she'd be on the couch, sprawled out, watching some true crime show or scrolling through her phone. But the living room was empty. I moved through the house quietly, trying to shake the creeping sense that I was walking into the wrong version of our life. I found her in the kitchen, standing by the back door, staring outside like she'd seen something, or someone. That made her forget I was standing there. She turned slowly, her eyes already wet. "I think we should take a break." I froze. The words hit like a punch, but I didn't know what to say. I didn't have a defense ready. Before I could ask what the hell was going on, she dropped the bomb. "Vince, he needs me. His life is falling apart. He's lost his home, and I think I can help him rebuild it. He needs me more than you do." The air left my lungs. Vince, the guy who'd always been there, floating on the edges of our relationship like a shadow. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was already gone. Maybe she had been for a while. Maybe I'd just been too focused on my own grind to notice. But there it was, clear as day. She wasn't mine anymore. And she never had been, not like I thought. I stared at her, the watch still tucked in my pocket like some cruel joke. I hadn't even realized I was holding it until I felt its coldness against my palm. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I handed her a card with a lawyer's number on it. A friend of a friend. I don't know why I did that. Maybe it was to make it all feel official. Maybe I didn't want to fight for something I knew wasn't mine anymore. Her eyes widened. "You're not going to fight for us?" she asked, like she couldn't believe I wasn't begging her to stay. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. I left the house, my legs moving on autopilot, and I drove. Hours, probably. I don't even know. I didn't want to go home. Didn't want to sit in that empty space with the weight of her absence pressing down on me. But when I finally did, half of her stuff was gone. And there was a note. She was staying at Vince's condo for a little while. I tried to keep my face steady, but inside, I was a mess. She stood there, clutching her purse like it was going to save her from the reality of what she'd just done. The words she'd dropped on me were still hanging in the air, thick and cold. I kept my voice calm, even though my stomach twisted like someone had taken a knife to it. "You're helping Vince?" I said, barely managing to keep the disgust out of my tone. "Helping him rebuild his life." She nodded, like she actually believed that crap, and it made my chest tighten. "I know it sounds strange," she said, twisting the strap of her purse, "but he's lost everything. I can't just sit by and do nothing. He needs me." I stared at her, trying to make sense of the mess she was making. "And what do you think I need, huh? Did you ever think about that?" She blinked, like the question didn't even compute. "You've got everything under control. You don't need me. You're always so put together." She said it like it was a bad thing. I exhaled slowly, my chest tight. Her words felt like nails dragging across my skin. I had no idea how she could stand there with that same tone, talking about how she was helping Vince, this guy who, as far as I knew, had barely shown up in her life in years. But now, apparently, he was her project, and I wasn't even a blip on her radar. I couldn't do it. I couldn't beg. I couldn't even pretend to be that guy anymore. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the card with the lawyer's number on it. I didn't even look at it, just handed it to her. "If you're serious about this," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "use this. You can call him. You've made your decision." She stared at the card like it was a foreign object. Her lips parted, but no words came out for a second. Then she shook her head, looking at me like I was the one who had completely lost it. "You're not even going to fight for us?" Her voice cracked, almost like she was waiting for me to beg. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not. You made your choice. Her eyes were wide now, and I could feel her falling apart in front of me, but I couldn't summon any sympathy. Not anymore. Not after all this. She wiped her face quickly, trying to act like she was fine, but I could see the guilt flashing in her eyes. She took the card from me, almost absent-mindedly, and nodded, her lips pressed tight. "I'm sorry," she said, barely above a whisper. But it didn't sound like an apology. It was like she was just saying something to fill the space between us, to cover up the fact that she knew she was walking out. I didn't say anything else. I just turned and walked out of the room. She didn't stop me. I don't know why, but I got in the car and just drove. No destination, no plan. Just drove until I couldn't think straight anymore. The streets blurred past. The headlights of other cars, a sickly reminder of how everything in my life had just changed in the span of a few minutes. I wanted to punch something, scream, but it all felt so pointless. By the time I got home, the house felt like a ghost town. It was too quiet. There was no sign of her, no trace of the life we'd shared, except for the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the air. But even that was starting to fade. I walked through the house like a stranger, my footsteps echoing in the emptiness. And then I saw it. Half of her stuff was gone. Clothes, shoes, her books, even the stupid little trinkets she used to leave around the house. There was a note on the kitchen counter, written in her messy handwriting. I didn't even have to read it to know what it was going to say. "I'm staying at Vince's for a little while. I think it's what's best for me. I'll be back to get the rest of my things soon. I'm sorry." I crumpled the note in my hand, the paper feeling like a betrayal. She wasn't coming back. Not really. She'd made up her mind. Vince was her future now, and I was just the guy she'd tossed aside. I dropped the note in the trash, the weight of it sinking into my chest. There was no reason to hold on to any of it. Nothing left to say. I sat there for a while, the silence pressing down on me. The house felt bigger, emptier somehow, and I realized that, in that moment, I was the one who was gone. The next morning, I hadn't even gotten out of bed before I heard a knock at the door. I dragged myself out from under the covers, my brain still sluggish from the night before, the ache in my chest still there like a bruise that wouldn't fade. It was Cheryl, my neighbor. She was standing there, looking like she had something to say. Her gray curls were a little wild, her eyes bright with something I couldn't place. "Hey, you got a minute?" she asked, stepping past me before I even had a chance to answer. I let her in, not really knowing why. Maybe I was still numb enough to not care. Maybe, deep down, I already knew what she was going to say. She didn't waste time with small talk. "I saw her, you know?" My stomach dropped. "Who?" I asked, even though I knew exactly who she meant. "Your girl. Last month. 2 or 3 times when you were at work. She was with that guy, Vince." She didn't need to say the name. It was him. Of course it was him. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to yell, to storm out of the house and find them both and make them face me. But I didn't. I just stood there, numb, listening to Cheryl talk. She wasn't exactly subtle about it. "I'm not trying to get in your business, but I thought you should know. I saw them together more than once, always when you were gone." I let her words sink in, each one heavier than the last. I wasn't surprised. Not really. I'd had a feeling, deep down, that something wasn't right. But hearing it from Cheryl, straight up, made it real in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. "Thanks," I said, my voice low. Cheryl gave me a sympathetic look, but I didn't want her sympathy. I wanted answers. She left after a couple more minutes, and I stood there, staring at the door, trying to breathe. The anger, the hurt, everything I'd been holding back, started to hit all at once. I turned toward the coat rack and grabbed the watch. I'd forgotten about it, shoved it deep in my coat pocket last night. It felt heavier now, like some cruel reminder of how much I'd been fooling myself. I held it in my hand, looking at it, thinking about how I'd planned to give it to her, how I'd planned to be the guy who made her smile again. But now I wasn't sure I even wanted her to have it. I shoved it into the back of the closet. Didn't care where it landed. I wasn't about to give her a damn thing. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, my fingers shaking as I dialed the lawyer's number from the card I'd handed her the night before. I made an appointment for Monday. I didn't care what it cost or how long it would take. I was done. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I called Sean. Sean was a firefighter. We used to grab beers every few weeks, but work, life, whatever had gotten in the way and we hadn't hung out in a while. I needed someone to talk to, someone who didn't give a damn about her, about what was supposed to happen. I needed to hear a voice that wasn't tied up in all this mess. He picked up after the second ring. "Hey man, what's up?" "I need a beer," I said. "Yeah, you got it. Meet me at O'Malley's in an hour." When I got there, Sean was already sitting at a corner booth, a bottle of beer in front of him. His eyes flicked up when I walked in, and I could tell by the way he looked at me that something was wrong. "Shit, man," he said, pushing the bottle toward me. "What's going on?" I didn't sugarcoat it. I laid it all out. How she left, how she'd been meeting up with Vince behind my back, how I'd found out, how it felt like everything was unraveling. Sean didn't interrupt, just listened, his brow furrowed. When I finished, he shook his head. "That's messed up." She didn't even try to explain. Huh. I laughed, though it didn't feel like a real laugh. More like the sound of something breaking. "Nope." She said she needed to help him, like I was some damn problem she couldn't solve. Like I wasn't worth it. He took a long swig of beer and then just sat there for a minute, quiet. When he finally spoke, his voice was blunt. "She's full of shit, man. You've been busting your ass for what, 3 years now? And this is what you get? That's cold." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Sean knew. "Hell, you're better off without her," he said, leaning back in his seat. "You don't need that kind of baggage. And Vince? That dude's a joke." I didn't feel better hearing him say it. I didn't feel worse either. But talking to Sean, someone who didn't give a damn about all the emotional mess, made me feel a little more like myself again. Like I wasn't some fool who just had his life turned upside down. We spent the next couple of hours talking about everything except her. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel so damn lost. That weekend, I woke up earlier than usual, the light pouring through the blinds like it was trying to remind me that the world still spun, even if mine had stopped. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was drowning in some endless pit of anger and confusion. Instead, I made myself breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, the usual. It wasn't much, but I made it without thinking about her, without wondering where she was or who she was with. I just ate, letting the quiet settle around me. After that, I put on my sneakers and went for a jog. I don't know why. I hadn't run in months, but it felt like something to do. It was slow and I wasn't in any kind of shape, but it was mine. I didn't have to explain it to anyone. I didn't have to hear complaints about the noise from the TV or the way I left dishes in the sink. It was just me and the rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement. And for the first time in a while, I didn't mind the silence. Later, I sat down on the couch to watch football. The game was already in progress, and I turned the volume up without worrying if it was too loud. There was no one here to tell me to turn it down. No one to sigh and give me that look when the announcer said something dumb. Felt freeing in a way I didn't expect. That's when my phone rang. I picked it up without thinking, half expecting it to be one of those robocalls that I just hang up on. But it wasn't. The number was unfamiliar, and when I answered, the voice on the other end caught me off guard. "Hey, is this Nate?" The guy sounded like he was chewing something, his voice gravelly. "I'm Dave. We used to work together on that construction site, remember? Dave." I hadn't heard that name in a while. We'd done a couple of projects together a few years back, but I didn't remember much beyond a couple of rough nights at the bar after long shifts. "Yeah, what's up?" I said, my hand tightening around the phone. "Listen, I know this is probably weird, but I gotta tell you something. Your girl, well, she called me a few weeks ago." He paused, probably to gauge my reaction. "She was asking about Vince. Said she was worried about him. I thought she was just checking in, you know? I didn't think much of it. But then, the other day, she mentioned he was struggling, couldn't pay his bills. Sounded like he was broke, all that." My stomach tightened. I didn't want to hear this. I really didn't, but I couldn't hang up. "I found out Vince isn't exactly struggling," Dave continued, his voice lowering like he was sharing some big secret. Dude leased a new Lexus, talking about a big new investment deal. He's fine, man. She's been played, and I don't think she even realized it. The words hit me like a sucker punch. I sat back, pressing my palm to my forehead, letting the reality of it settle in. Vince had never been broke. He'd spun a damn story, and she'd swallowed it whole. I wanted to be angry. I should have been angry. She had used that same excuse about helping him, like it was some noble cause, and here she was, looking like a fool. But I didn't feel any of that. I just felt done. I didn't want to be right. I didn't want to hear that Vince was still playing games, while I was working my ass off trying to build something with her. And the worst part was, I didn't even feel vindicated. No, I just felt like I'd wasted my time. I'd given everything, and she'd given it to him. I hung up the phone slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I didn't even know what to do with the information. Should I call her? Should I confront her? I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. What would that change? She was already gone. She wasn't my problem anymore. I stood up, walking over to the closet where I had shoved the watch earlier. I pulled it out, staring at the silver band in my hand. This thing had been for her. A stupid gift for a girl who wasn't even sure she wanted to be here. I'd imagined her face lighting up when I gave it to her, imagined us talking about the future, about the life we were going to build. But that was gone now, just like she was. I tossed the watch back in the closet, slammed the door shut, and walked out of the room. There was nothing left to fix, nothing left to chase. I couldn't do it anymore. For the rest of the weekend, I stayed busy. I went to the store, cleaned up the house, did things that didn't require thinking too hard. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't miserable either. It was just calm, almost like the noise inside my head had turned down a few decibels. And that, I realized, was more than I'd had in a long time. I walked into Ray Dobson's office Monday morning, feeling like a man with nothing left to lose. Ray was a no-nonsense guy, and that was exactly what I needed. He had a sharp haircut, the kind you'd see on a guy who'd been through a few divorces himself. "You're here, so we're not wasting time," Ray said when I sat down. He didn't offer coffee or small talk, just a direct look that made everything else in the room fade out. I took a deep breath. She left. For him. Vince. My words felt flat, like I was reporting something that wasn't mine to report anymore. Ray nodded, scribbling something down on his notepad. "That's enough. We can fast-track the split, no problem. Infidelity's usually a strong case. And if he's involved, even better." He glanced up at me. "You've got evidence?" I thought about Cheryl's words from the other day. "Yeah, I've got enough." Ray didn't waste time with niceties. "Good. Sign this and we'll get started. We'll move fast. Make sure she knows she's not coming back." He slid a stack of papers across the desk. I didn't hesitate. I signed everything, even though I hadn't fully processed the reality of it yet. The pen felt heavy in my hand, like it was finalizing something I couldn't take back. When I was done, Ray looked at me again, his expression unreadable. "You'll feel lighter after this, trust me," he said. And for the first time in a while, I thought maybe he was right. I stood up, shaking his hand, and walked out of his office with the initial paperwork in hand. It wasn't over, not yet, but it felt like I'd crossed a line. The tension in my shoulders, the tightness in my chest, it was all gone, for the first time in months. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt like this, like I wasn't walking around with a weight on my back. I needed to get out of my head. So, I decided to stop by that trendy cafe she always made fun of. It was one of those places with exposed brick and fancy lattes that cost more than they should. But I didn't care. I'd been wanting to try one of their drinks for ages. I didn't have her around to roll her eyes at me anymore. The barista, a guy with tattoos and a man bun, asked if I wanted something special. I hesitated but went for it. "The salted caramel cold brew. The one on your menu you recommend." He smiled, and I realized I hadn't smiled in a while. The drink turned out to be surprisingly good. Actually, it was amazing. The bitterness of the coffee mixed with the sweetness of the caramel. Just the right balance. I sat there, sipping it slowly, watching people come and go, feeling the strangest sense of calm. It was almost as if, in that moment, the world hadn't changed at all. Like I hadn't spent the last week unraveling. By the time I got to work, I was more focused than I'd been in ages. I walked in and got straight to it, no distractions, no mind wandering to her, to what she was doing, or what Vince was up to now. My supervisor noticed. "Good to see you back," he said when he stopped by my station, looking at me like he saw something different in me. "You're sharp today. Better than you've been in a while." I didn't know how to respond. Instead, I just nodded. "Thanks. You've got your head back in the game," he added, then walked off. Felt good hearing that. Felt real. The rest of the shift flew by. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't dodging landmines. I wasn't thinking about her or pretending things were fine when they weren't. I was just doing my job, and that was enough. I remembered what it was like to be me, before all the complications, before the constant emotional drain. I hadn't realized how much I'd lost myself, how much I'd let her cloud everything. But today I remembered, and for the first time in months I wasn't miserable. I wasn't bitter. I was just free. Thursday night, my phone buzzed. I saw her name on the screen and felt a sharp pang in my chest, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready. I wasn't going to be that guy anymore. It didn't stop her. She called again, and then again, each time the buzzing more insistent, like she was trying to break through something I was working so hard to build. I let it ring out, each call feeling like a test I wasn't interested in taking. But the fourth one I picked up. Her voice came through, shaky, almost hesitant. "Nate, please, just listen." I wasn't sure how to answer at first. Hearing her voice again felt like a ghost brushing against my skin, a reminder of everything I'd been trying to forget. "What do you want, Susan?" My words were sharp, more cutting than I meant. "I know I screwed up," she said quickly, rushing through the words like they were already rehearsed. "Vince, he's not who I thought he was. He lied to me, Nate. I was so stupid. I didn't say anything." My heart wasn't racing anymore, but there was a bitterness spreading through me that made it hard to breathe. She sounded exactly how I expected, nervous, apologetic, but not fully grasping what she'd done. "Not really. You were right," she continued, her voice quieter now. "I made a huge mistake. I didn't think about what it would do to you, but maybe we could work it out, you and me." The silence between us was thick, almost suffocating. I sat there, listening to the sound of her breathing, trying to keep my cool. But she was asking the impossible. She didn't get it. She still didn't get it. "You made your decision," I said flatly. "You walked out, and you made it clear I wasn't worth it." She gasped, like I had slapped her through the phone. "That's not fair," she said, her voice suddenly defensive. "I didn't mean for it to end like this. I thought I was doing the right thing." "You didn't think, Susan?" I said, my words a little colder than I intended. "You never thought about me. You never thought about the years I spent working for this, for us, while you were chasing some fantasy. Vince, whatever his deal is, isn't your problem anymore." I heard her take a shaky breath. "Can I come home? Just to talk? Please, Nate, just to talk." The question hung in the air, like she was asking for a door to open that had been slammed shut. I stared at the phone, feeling that familiar ache in my chest, but I pushed it down. There was no going back. Not after everything. "No," I said, firm and clear. "You made your choice. It's too late." There was a long pause. I could almost hear her searching for words, something to fix it, but I wasn't going to let her. Not this time. I wasn't going to be the guy who begged. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. I ended the call without another word. My hands were shaking slightly, but I couldn't let myself feel the weight of it. I stood up and walked into the kitchen, pushing the emotions down like they were just another task to finish. I'd been cooking dinner before she'd called, and I wasn't about to let her ruin the rest of my night. So, I finished chopping the vegetables and threw them into the skillet, the sizzling sound oddly soothing, grounding me. After a while, the smell of garlic and onions filled the kitchen, and I set the table. I poured myself a glass of wine, the rich red color a contrast to the mess that had been my life a few weeks ago. I sat down to eat, and for the first time in a long time it felt good to be alone. I clicked on the TV, and an action movie came on, the kind she used to roll her eyes at, the kind I never cared to watch without her. But tonight I didn't mind. I didn't have to explain anything. I didn't have to watch what I said or worry about how it made her feel. I was just me, sitting in my own space, eating a meal I made for myself. The movie was loud and full of explosions, the hero doing all the things I used to dream about. Fighting, winning, surviving. It wasn't deep or meaningful, but right then, it was exactly what I needed. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was starting to find my way back. Not to who I had been with her, but to who I was without her. Weeks went by and the calls kept coming. At first, I ignored them, but then I couldn't escape the feeling that she was just trying to keep some thread between us. Something to pull me back in. I knew better, but each time my phone buzzed, there was that split second of hesitation. One afternoon, Susan called again, her voice different this time, more frantic, shaky. She told me she'd seen her at the dollar store. Apparently, she'd been yelling at someone on the phone, and it wasn't Vince. It was someone else. "Did you know she's been working retail? Part-time," Susan said, as if it was supposed to mean something to me. "And she's waiting tables at night too. She's falling apart, Nate." I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't care, not anymore. It was a far cry from the life she had been living with me, but it wasn't my problem. The next few days, word spread around the building where I worked. Susan hadn't been keeping a low profile. She was desperate for cash, desperate for attention. People were talking about her, and not in any kind of way that made her look good. It was like she was trying to keep her old life together by clinging to whatever scraps she could find. But the harder she tried, the worse it got. Then one night, as I was sitting down to dinner, my phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with her name. This time I answered. I wasn't sure why. Maybe because it had been a while since I'd heard from her, or maybe I thought I could finally put an end to it. "Nate, please," she said, her voice trembling. She sounded broken. "I need your help." The words that followed were hard to make sense of, but I pieced them together slowly. Vince had disappeared, vanished without a trace, taking her money with him. The cash she'd loaned him from our old joint account. She was crying now, barely able to get the words out. "I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. He took everything. I need somewhere to stay just for a little while. Please, Nate. Just the couch. I'll make it right. Promise. I swear I'll fix it." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, and for a second, I let the silence fill the room. Her voice had always been able to twist something in me, but not anymore. I felt nothing but numb. "You've already made your choices, Susan," I said, my voice flat, cold. "And I'm not your backup plan. You're not my responsibility anymore." She was quiet for a moment, like she was processing it, or maybe she didn't believe it at first. Then the pleading started. "I didn't mean for it to go this way. I didn't." "Stop." I cut her off. I couldn't listen to the excuses anymore. "You didn't think about me. You didn't think about us. You made your bed, and now you're laying in it." There was a long, drawn-out silence. Then came the tears. Soft, desperate sobs on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry, Nate. I messed up so bad. Please, don't leave me like this." But I wasn't going to fall for it. Not this time. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into this mess. "I can't help you," I said. "Not anymore." I ended the call before she could say anything else. The decision was final. She wasn't going to get the satisfaction of hearing me waver. I tossed the phone on the couch, the weight of the silence settling over me. The room felt too quiet, but I didn't want to hear her voice anymore. Didn't want to hear any of the lies or the desperation. I stood up, went to the kitchen, and poured myself a drink. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I turned off my phone. Completely. I didn't want to hear it buzzing. Didn't want to be reminded of her chaos. I needed the peace. The rest of the night was mine. I didn't care what she was doing, or what kind of mess she'd gotten herself into. I didn't feel guilty for saying no. I didn't feel anything at all. I finished my dinner and sat down to watch a movie. An old one. The kind I used to watch with her, but tonight it was just me. Just me and the stillness of my own life. My life had settled into a rhythm. I woke up rested for the first time in what felt like forever. The kind of deep sleep you don't know you're missing until you get it back. The house stayed clean, not spotless, but clean in the way you keep it when you're the only one in it. I didn't have to dodge anyone's complaints. Didn't have to keep an eye out for the next emotional landmine. It was just me moving through my days, and it felt right. Work was booming, too. I wasn't thinking about her, wasn't trying to play mental gymnastics around her moods or excuses. I was in the zone, focused. It was like someone had finally taken the weight off my shoulders. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. Wasn't pulling all-nighters because of some mess I had to clean up. It was just work, just me doing what I was good at. My supervisor even noticed, commenting on how sharp I was these days. Felt good to hear, but even better to feel. Then, one morning, my lawyer called. "Divorce papers are ready," he said, matter of fact. "She hasn't responded to anything. We tracked her down at a weekly rental place. We can move forward as soon as you sign." I sat back in my chair, the words sinking in. There was a finality to them that I didn't expect, but it didn't feel bad. In fact, I felt relieved. It was another step away from everything she dragged me through. Another reminder that this was my life now, and I was taking control of it. Later that day, I met up with Sean at a bar for the first time in weeks. We grabbed beers and caught up on everything. The conversation eventually turned to Susan, of course, like it always did. "You hear where she's working now?" Sean asked, leaning back in his chair, a smirk tugging at his lips. "A greasy diner. Waiting tables. Guess she wasn't getting that investment deal she thought she was gonna get." I looked at him, not surprised. I could picture it, her probably faking a smile for tips, slinging food to people who didn't care about her drama. He watched me closely, like he was waiting for me to react. Does it bother you?" I shook my head, taking a sip of my beer. "No," I said, shrugging. "It doesn't bother me. I don't care." Sean raised his eyebrows. "Really? After everything?" "Yeah," I said, setting the bottle down, my voice steady. "I'm not bitter. I'm just done. It is what it is." And that was the truth of it. I didn't feel the anger anymore. Didn't feel any need to justify myself. She had made her bed. I didn't have to lie in it. After we finished our beers, I walked around the city for a while, just taking in the cool evening air, clearing my head. I ended up on 5th Street, standing in front of a luxury watch store. The windows were all polished, the displays filled with shiny, perfect watches, the kind I'd once imagined getting for her. I stood there for a long moment, thinking about how different things were now. I wasn't thinking about her, about what she might like, or how she would have reacted. No, this time I was thinking about me. I walked inside. The salesman came up immediately, eager to help, and I didn't hesitate. "I want that one," I said, pointing to a sleek, black watch with a simple design. It wasn't flashy, but it felt right. The man raised an eyebrow but didn't question me. He got the watch, showed me how it worked, and wrapped it up neatly. I paid for it with a swipe of my card, no hesitation. When I walked out of the store, the weight of the box in my hand felt like a small victory. It was a reminder of everything I'd gained back, everything I was building for myself. It wasn't about the watch, really. It was about the choice to make something for me this time, something I didn't have to share, didn't have to explain. It was mine, and that felt good. As I walked home, the night air was cool, the streets quiet. It was just me with my life in front of me. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to fall apart. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I was just moving forward. A month passed before she showed up again. It was late, a Thursday night, the kind of dark, wet rain that makes everything look blurry through the windows. I was just finishing up some paperwork when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't even have to look out the window. I knew who it was. I stepped outside, more curious than anything. I didn't expect this, not like this. But sure enough, there she was. Susan, standing on the wet pavement, looking like a ghost of the person I used to know. Her hair was wet, her clothes soaked through, and she didn't look like she had slept in days. But it wasn't just her. There were 4 of them: Susan's mom, her sister, a friend I didn't recognize, and a lawyer. The lawyer was the one who stepped forward first, holding up his hands in a placating gesture, like he was about to try some sort of negotiation. "We're here for a conversation," he said, his voice a little too smooth. "A reconciliation." I nearly laughed. Reconciliation? That word didn't even belong in the same sentence as what had happened between us. I stepped out into the rain, the cold soaking through my jacket almost immediately. The world felt different in that moment, like I was standing outside a door I had already closed, but now they were knocking, expecting to get in. "You've got 5 minutes," I said, my voice steady. "Make it count." Susan was quiet at first, standing there with her hands clasped tightly in front of her, as if she was trying to hold herself together. Her mother was next to her, shifting uncomfortably in the rain, looking like she didn't know what to say. Her sister had her arms crossed, like she was trying to shield herself from whatever was coming. The lawyer cleared his throat. "What we're asking, Nate, is for you to reconsider the situation. It's been months, and Susan's clearly made a mistake." "I'm not interested in your spin," I interrupted. I didn't need the lawyer's excuses. I wasn't going to stand there and let him talk circles around me. Susan stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Nate, I've made so many mistakes. I don't know where my head was. Vince, he wasn't what I thought. I was wrong. I need you. I want us to work again. Please." Her voice cracked, and I saw her face crumble for just a second. But the feeling I had wasn't one of sympathy. It was the same frustration, the same anger that had built up over months of her lies and excuses. "You don't get to come back after all of this," I said, my words coming out harder than I intended. "You don't get to ask me to take you back, to ask me to fix this. You made your choice, Susan. You chose him. You chose the lies, the money, the whole damn thing. I'm not your safety net anymore." She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off again. "Every single choice you made led you here," I said, louder this time. "You thought I was too put together. Well, look where that got you. Look where we are now. You can't come back from that. I'm not here to pick up the pieces anymore." Her eyes were full of tears now, and she started to speak again, but the words didn't matter. She was still pleading, still trying to make excuses for what she'd done, but none of it mattered anymore. Not to me. Her mom stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Nate, please. She's been through hell. Can't you see that?" I looked at her, but I didn't feel anything. She dug her own hole. She's the one who decided to bury herself in it. Not me. I turned to Susan. "You don't get to undo what you've done. This is your mess now, and I'm done cleaning it up." There was a long, heavy pause as everyone stood there in the rain, waiting for me to change my mind. But I wasn't going to. I wasn't going to feel bad for her anymore. I wasn't going to listen to her apologies. "You need to go," I said flatly. "All of you." She started to say something, but her words were lost in the rain, her face hidden behind a veil of tears. Her mom whispered something to her, and her sister looked at me, eyes full of anger, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing this for them. I was doing this for me. I turned, walking back toward the door, but I could feel her eyes on me as I went inside. The sound of the rain hitting the roof, the wet steps beneath my feet, were the only things I heard as I shut the door behind me. And that was it. There was no more drama, no more begging, no more pretending. I sat on the couch, drenched but numb, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe again. After they left, I sat in the quiet of my house, letting the weight of everything settle. The rain was still coming down outside, but it felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else's life. I poured myself a whiskey, the glass cool in my hand, and took a slow sip. The burn in my throat was a reminder that I had survived, that I was here, and I wasn't going anywhere. No voicemails, no texts, no drama, just silence. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't mind it. I pulled out my phone and dialed my parents. It had been ages since we talked just to talk. No excuses, no hidden agendas. My mom picked up after the first ring, and the conversation felt easy, like it used to. We talked about life, the holidays coming up, things that mattered but didn't carry the weight of the last few months. I didn't feel like I was lying or hiding anything. I was just present, and that felt good. 2 days earlier, the divorce had been finalized. There was something almost anticlimactic about it, but in the best possible way. It was over. The papers were signed, the knot was untied, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was hanging by a thread, waiting for everything to fall apart. It was done, and I was free. I went to the gym after that call, feeling the energy of the space around me, the clank of weights, the rhythm of my feet hitting the treadmill. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed the simplicity of it. Just the focus, the sweat, the push to go a little harder each day. I didn't have to think about anyone else's problems or carry their weight with mine. It was all me, just for once. After the gym, I grabbed lunch with some coworkers. We sat at a bar, chatting about work, sports, random stuff that didn't matter. I found myself laughing more than I had in a while, not faking it, just feeling like myself again. I even finished a report early that afternoon. The satisfaction of crossing something off my list, of doing a job well done, felt like a small victory in itself. No last-minute scrambling, no emotional baggage slowing me down. Life wasn't glamorous. It wasn't exciting, but it was mine. There was no chaos, no lies, no guilt eating away at me. I was just living. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't gloating. I didn't need to. I was finally free, and that was enough. That freedom, the ability to wake up in my own space, make my own choices, and live without constantly wondering what mess I was walking into, was the real gift. The one I'd been working toward all along. And it felt damn good.